evening, you're with ET Now. This is the India Development Debate, the only show on news television that puts the spotlight on development issues. I'm Sandeep Gurumurthi, joining you from the news center in Mumbai. Joining me in Delhi is my colleague Supriya Shrinate. Let's take it straight to the big debate tonight. All eyes are on Delhi as a crucial monsoon session of Parliament gets underway from tomorrow, coming at a time when relations between the Treasury and the opposition benches have hit a new low. The government is going all out to ensure that it is not a washout, just like the budget session. Prime Minister Modi himself has taken the lead in reaching out to opposition leaders, requesting them to facilitate the passage of crucial bills in this session.
Indeed, but going by the signs of it, it is not going to be easy at all. Leader of opposition parties, including the principal opposition, the Congress, met today to discuss the strategy to put the government on the mat over burning issues like mob lynching, atrocities against women and Dalit, and rising unemployment levels. At stake, of course, is the fate of more than 45 bills, including the one on triple talaq. When it comes to building bridges with the opposition parties, the Modi government's record, least to say, is less than impressive. Now, considering the fact that this is likely to be the penultimate session for the NDA regime, will lawmaking take precedence over petty politics? That's exactly what we're discussing right here on the India Development Debate tonight. Joining us is a special panel right here. Let me get the politicians out of the way. Naren Taneja represents the BJP, Sanjay Jha from the Congress, Ghanshyam Tiwari is the spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. We've got Chakshu Roy, head of outreach at PRS Legislative Research, and R. Jagannathan, editorial director, Swaraj magazine. So thanks each one of you for being with us right here on the India Development Debate tonight. It's very important that we're discussing the monsoon session because we do not want a winter washout, and which is why I think the first question comes to you, Jaggi. By the looks of it, it looks like we're staring at a stormy session that begins tomorrow. But given the legislative track record of the 16th Lok Sabha, are you at all hopeful, or do you believe it will once again be a case of hopes belied?
Yes, see, I hope it does not become a complete washout like what happened in the last session during the budget and all that. And it's necessary that we salvage some legislative time this time, because of very important bills pending. So of course the opposition is going to try and push for a no confidence vote, because it will give them scope to bring out all the negatives as far as the government is concerned. I hope the government actually allows the political process of a no confidence vote to happen first, so that you can devote the second half of the session for actually the legislative things once the vote is won, assuming the vote is won, of course, which is most likely to happen. I think allowing people to stall the parliament indefinitely does not help the government or the opposition, because I think it's not in anybody's interest to do that. I think it is best to get, I think I heard Mallikarjun Kharge said they will bring in a vote of no confidence. The government should probably try and preempt it and say, let's bring a trust vote in advance, finish it in the first 2-3 days, and then hope for the legislative business to be done. I hope that's the way it proceeds, but one can never predict, because you are right, in the thick of election season, 2019 has already begun.
Oh yes, absolutely, and hopefully, we will see some business getting done in what is the penultimate session. Many believe the last opportunity for the government to push through its legislative agenda. But Chakshu, comment on that. The 16th Lok Sabha has witnessed low productivity and dismal conduct of legislative business. How does this stack up with the previous few sessions, and who would you blame this on? Is it on frequent disruptions by an unrelenting opposition, or inefficient flow management by the government?
No, I think, if you look at the track record of the 14th Lok Sabha, the 15th Lok Sabha, and now the 16th Lok Sabha, there is some element of disruption that happens when you're, when you're closing towards a general election. So the winter session, saw huge disruptions. The second part of the monsoon session saw a number of disruptions. And as Mr. Jagannathan was pointing out, it comes at the cost of legislative business. So if I just wanted to put it in context, there are, close to 60 odd bills which are currently pending in Parliament. 25 of them now need to be debated over a course of 18 days. It's an 18-day session. And any day that Parliament is disrupted, what it will do is it will reduce the time of scrutiny for the 25 legislation that the government plans to consider and pass. And I think they have another 18 that they want to introduce, consider and pass. Lesser time in Parliament means lesser debate and lesser scrutiny. And when you have lesser scrutiny of legislation in both houses of Parliament, the chances of a bill getting through which is not as strengthened as you would like, increases. So I would hope for the fact that Parliament works smoothly. and is able to sit beyond its usual course of 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock and is able to devote much more time to legislation. This is also I'm so sorry I interrupted you. Sure. This is also a crucial session. It marks the 1-year anniversary of the GST bill getting passed. So important economic, other than legislation, there will be important economic issues that are also on the table for Parliament to discuss.
Okay, let me just take this across to Sanjay Jha, who's joining us right here. And Chakshu, you were speaking about the productivity. Let me throw some numbers at our viewers. The budget session earlier this year was the least productive Parliament session in the last 18 years, since 2000. Lok Sabha productivity was at 21%, Rajya Sabha productivity was at 31%. Parliament spent, in fact, just 1% of its time on legislative business in the Lok Sabha and 6% of the time in the Rajya Sabha. Sanjay Jha, is that what we elect our representatives for? To tell these statistics to our viewers and to this country? Aren't they supposed to make laws on very crucial subjects, subjects of national importance, subjects of economic relevance?
Supriya, I think it's absolutely reprehensible that precious parliamentary time is being wasted on account of these, extremely avoidable log jams. Now, I want to make one point here. The monsoon session starts, and with India at the moment facing social anarchy and economic stagnation and deceleration and political turbulence, we need to definitely invest all our time to making sure the monsoon session works. There are 2 points, however, which are very relevant to the discussion. Point number one, please remember this, and I'm not saying this merely as a member of the opposition, but it is the responsibility of the government. It's a responsibility of the majority party in Parliament that runs the government to ensure that Parliament functions smoothly. Now, you had an extraordinary situation in the last Parliament whose numbers you are now sharing, which clearly are dismal, where the government itself wanted the Parliament to be stalled. Now, you have a situation today where, if you remember Arun Jaitley, when he was the member of the opposition, he made his great statement that, parliamentary obstruction is part of their political strategy, and they felt it was an opposition's fundamental right. Now, we don't agree with them, but that is the BJP's belligerent posture, which was purely driven by forcing a gridlock, and many of the bills could not pass. One of them was the GST. So, end of day, I think if the government has a clear intention to discuss, for example, the lynchings where the Supreme Court has intervened, if the government really wants to discuss issues like why are they scrapping UGC, if the government really has the courage to talk about the Kashmir problem and why they have, further accentuated it by their terrible politics, if the government wants to really discuss at the moment the real crisis emerging, even in terms of certain aspects of the judiciary, if the government wants to discuss about why they wanted to dilute the SC/ST Act, these are fundamental challenges that we need to talk about.
Okay, so
there should be deliberations and discussions.
So Sanjay Jha,
I don't think this government has the right intention, but we'll challenge them on the floor of the Parliament.
Okay, you want to set the agenda for what will happen in this session. I wonder what Narendra Taneja has to say to that. But Narendra Taneja, before I come to you, let's hear from Ghanshyam Tiwari as well. Then you can respond to both of them. Ghanshyam, what can we realistically expect? What is going to be the opposition stance as far as this session is concerned? I understand that you will rake up the issue of rise in hate crime, communal violence, lynching. Now, the Supreme Court has made some observation crime against women. So, is the stage set for a stormy session of Parliament? And, look, at the end of the day, you perhaps have to blame all sides. Yes, I know the opposition is going to raise issues of how minister of this government is garlanding lynching convicts. But there is also someone who wants to bring religion into defense forces. So, where does this end? I'm trying to understand, how do we sort of break through this narrow politics and ensure that some business gets done in the penultimate session of this Lok Sabha?
The government slogan right now is Saaf Niyat Sahi Vikas, and if their niyat is saaf, they will allow the Parliament to function. In the winter session, the niyat was not saaf. We saw as a result, a finance bill was passed that allowed political parties to seek donation from foreign companies without scrutiny, which is again now in the court, and BJP has no answer on why it allowed such an amendment to pass. So, it's a Parliament debate is extremely important in the day and age of fake news and propaganda, because in Parliament at least you get to hear the two parties and the nation gets to know what is the real story, and that is the reason why the opposition wants the Parliament to function. Second, There is a no confidence motion. We stand with the no confidence motion, and it is a no confidence motion introduced by an ally of NDA who got the same mandate as Prime Minister Modi. We stand with that no confidence motion because the nation wants to hear why did this government create a regime of 4 years of misrule? Why did it not deliver its promises? And that is an opportunity for us to ask those questions. Third, there are very, very pressing issues on both economic side and social harmony side. On the economic side, we have still not heard from in the parliament on what happened in demonetization. What is the true story of 1 year of poorly implemented GST? On the social side, we know our social fabric is under stress when the government and its leading party starts stone pelting opposition on are you Hindu, are you Muslim, and prove you are Muslim or Hindu. That stresses the social fabric. So both on economic and social fabric, we want to hear from the government. As a result, we want parliament to function. If the government has saaf niyat sahi vikas, the parliament will function.
I'm just going to take off from what you were referring to right before you wrapped up your answer, and that is the social fabric being distressed. And I think somebody like Narendra Taneja, who's usually a candid speaker, is going to answer that frankly. The government of the day will be asked tough questions, sir. The Supreme Court wants you to make a law, and we'll discuss that in just a bit from now. But the government of the day will be asked questions. We will perhaps see disruptions on account of the rise in communal violence, the lynching incidents, the fake news and all of that. But is it really a case of lynching? Or is this actually an issue of complete collapse of law and order and a failed state that needs to get its act together? This is not just a communal lynching problem. This is a problem where the state wants to look away. And some people will say the state is perhaps complicit.
I don't know which state you're talking about. Are you talking of Uttar Pradesh, you're talking of West Bengal or Tamil Nadu? You know, we are a federal structure and law and order, and under the constitution, you know, states enjoy full autonomy on such issues. So I don't know which state you know, you're referring to. But as far as
Mr. Taneja, I'm referring to the government.
No, but which government? Are you referring to the central government?
I'm talking about the central government at large, and of course state governments that have seen cases of lynching and mob violence the next. I'm saying I'm talking about the central government at large and the state governments that have seen cases of mob lynching the next.
Yeah, I mean, whatever the point, you see, when you can have your own point of view, you can have your interpretation, you might have your own reasons, but the parliament is meant for all this only. Come to the parliament and discuss all these issues, debate those issues, you know, and ask tough questions like you are asking me. That's what the parliament is all about. But if you don't let the parliament even run, and then say, all right, Mr. Arun Jaitley said this 10 years ago or 8 years ago, and therefore Mr. Jaitley said so many other things, except all that he had said over the, in his entire career. You know, the point here is that don't you have a mind of your own? Don't you have an experience of your own? Don't you have kind of, you know, your own wisdom on issues? The question here is that there is some serious business. They've got 28 important bills, some of them very, very important in Lok Sabha alone. Then you have 30 bills in Rajya Sabha. This is what the people actually, are paying for it. They are paying for it. They have elected you for this business. And the problem is that, you know, I can understand that because you were punished by the people, because you did practically nothing, you looted the country, people punished you to 44 seats, and now you have not still accepted it, and you are punishing the parliament, you are punishing the government, you are punishing the entire parliamentary process, you are punishing the entire country for that. And what are the message you're trying to say? All right, since we were punished so severely by the people of this country, we don't recognize this parliament.
Okay, you made your point.
Parliament function.
Okay,
that's what is happening.
Okay.
We have seen there are visuals.
I hear you, Narendra Taneja. You're basically saying we are ready to take tough questions.
Plenty of time to others, to Sanjay Jha. Why not letting me allow to?
Okay, go ahead. I'm saying
why
I
are you
hear
letting
you.
me finish my point?
Okay, go ahead. Finish your point, Narendra Taneja. Finish your point.
You came to me with a question.
Sure, go ahead. Finish your point.
I answered this question by asking, but you said the debate will be on monsoon session. All right, I have no problem. Continue.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear
Whenever
you.
you allow
The
me, I
limited
will
point
speak.
you're saying, Narendra Taneja, the limited point you're saying is we are not afraid of facing tough questions. Ask what you want, but do it in the floor of the House and let the Parliament function. You're in some sense putting the onus on the opposition. I will let Sanjay rebut, but before that, I want to take it back to Chakshu Roy and let's talk facts here. 40 bills introduced by Modi government since 2014 are still to be passed. 12 of these have been passed by Lok Sabha and are stuck in Rajya Sabha, for which it's right to blame the opposition. It's only fair to blame the opposition. But there are 28 bills that haven't cleared even the lower house. How does one justify that given the majority that this government enjoys?
You know, I don't think it's fair to say bills are stuck in Parliament. The part of the parliamentary system is that the two houses are supposed to debate on legislation. And if consensus, if political consensus is not built on bills, and bills cannot be passed either through paucity of time or because the parties don't agree on specific bills, that's a different matter. But you're right, there are bills pending in both houses of Parliament, and there are two reasons for that. One is, for some of the bills, opposition parties have felt that adequate parliamentary scrutiny has not taken place. So there has been demands for sending some bills to a parliamentary select committee. And I think that's fair. The more scrutiny that Parliament does, the more it ensures that bills don't have to be amended over and over again. So that's one part of it. The second part of it, there is a fair bit of legislative agenda before Parliament. So two things need to be done. One, we have to ensure that there is bipartisanship. Whatever discussion and debate that needs to happen on the floor of the House happens on the floor of the House. Because, there will always be political exigencies, there will always be political controversies either before the session or during the session, and that should ideally not derail the debate and discussion in Parliament. So, if somehow, the joint party meetings that happen before Parliament are one mechanism to ensure that. But can we do that more often? And the final point that I'd like to make is, there are 6 ordinances which were introduced between the budget session and the beginning of the session. So there will have to be bills which will come in to replace these things. And all of them are technical pieces of legislation. There are important legislation that concern, all of us as citizens, the Motor Vehicles Act, the Consumer Protection Act. There are bills around negotiable instruments. There are important policy issues around home buyers being given the status of financial creditors, and maybe we can talk about that. But in general, this Parliament has a packed agenda. And, as was referred, there is not much time left. If these bills are not passed during the term of this Lok Sabha, many of these bills, which are Lok Sabha bills, will lapse. And what that would mean is that the entire administrative work, the entire political consensus building will have to start all over again, which just means lost time for a country which could use some of these legislations right now.
No, fair point indeed. And I think you spoke about some of the consumer-oriented ones. Considering this is a short or an 18-seating session, but a penultimate full session of this Lok Sabha with elections due perhaps next year in April or May, there is crucial legislation pending, and 25 bills have been listed for consideration and passage, which includes some of the ones like Lokpal, land acquisition, protection of whistleblowers, protection of transgender persons' rights, interstate river water disputes, triple talaq, the Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill. And Jaggi, the question is that given some of the big picture bills that I spoke about and the ones that Chakshu referred to, which really impact the common man like you and me, don't lawmakers have their plates full? Don't lawmakers have their, calendars chock-a-block to make laws on most of these crucial issues instead of whiling away time? I mean, this cannot be left to political posturing all over again. Can we afford it? Jaggi, could you get my question?
Yeah. Now I can hear. Yeah. See, the thing is, the lawmakers have been largely irresponsible, both on the opposition side and to some extent the government side. The point is, Parliament is not run by rules. It is instead, for example, the Rajya Sabha cannot see itself as purely a blocking mechanism because the opposition has a majority there. I mean, once, for example, the land acquisition bill went to a select committee 3 years ago and we still haven't heard about it now. I mean, can the upper house just to think there has to be some normal process where if the upper house does not reject a bill, it should come to a joint session and you should quickly resolve. It's all right to call for consensus and all that stuff, but sometimes in our divided polity you may not get consensus. So you have to build legislative majorities through the devices that are already provided in the constitution, which includes joint sessions where the Rajya Sabha either accepts or rejects a bill. Now, if you just keep filibustering a bill, sit on it for years on end and don't do anything, this is a real problem. I mean, it's all right to say you can build consensus, but everything you can't build a consensus. You got to move to the next stage, and you can't, the opposition is not playing right in this case. They're just sitting on the bills and it's not moving forward anywhere, and then they're getting killed. So that's one change that needs to happen, that if something does not happen, it should move to a joint session of parliament and the bill needs to get passed. That's the key to moving many bills.
Okay, I'll come to you, Sanjay, but before that, I want Narendra Taneja to react to a specific point made there by Jaggi on the land acquisition bill. And Mr. Taneja, has lawmaking been a substitute for perception building? I mean, why did the government drop the proposals to amend the Land Acquisition Act? It was a move that we at ET Now for sure welcomed. Were you too scared by the suit boot ki sarkar jibe of the Congress party and Rahul Gandhi?
No, it's not that you see, it's not the question being scared or such jibes, because who takes, I mean, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, he says many things, and we don't really take him very seriously on when he makes such kind of comments. I mean, when he says something interesting, something weighty, something meaty, of course we take him seriously. But he keeps on talking. I don't know who writes his speeches or his tweets, we really don't know. The point here is that, the point here is different. The point is that when we came up with this idea, and a lot of people supported it, but at the same time there was kind of, some kind of resistance in some quarters, and people said that, look, they want to have a further discussion on the issue. And we decided, we even have discussion with various political parties and the leaders of, various parties, including the Congress party. And after that, that we took the decision that we took. The question here is that, we have to see basically, do you want to use parliament for the welfare of the people, or you want to use parliament only to score some points, or only to make life difficult for the Bharatiya Janata Party government, since the people chose Bharatiya Janata Party and they decided to throw the Congress party out. It seems that for them, they are in love with themselves. For them, their party comes first. The country probably doesn't even count. As far as Congress, we know that the country doesn't matter. The question is that, where parliament is meant for debates, any issue, lynching you want to discuss, debate, or land acquisition bill, aviation, whatever, that's what the parliament is meant for. And instead of doing that, I want to give you an example. Mr. Scindia, he came prepared to have a debate, but then Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who was just standing there, waved him, and suddenly we saw that Mr. Scindia was a different person, very aggressive, changed, papers were thrown away and all that. So now the question is, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, our impression is that they just want to, use that time in order to create tamasha and headlines. They are not interested in serious parliamentary business.
Okay. I wonder what were you making the AIADMK do in the well of the house in the budget session? We saw the entire session being washed out because 3 MPs from AIADMK come and the session was adjourned. But anyways, I'm going to take a little bit of an uncomfortable question to Ghanshyam Tiwari, because I have much more to ask of you, Narendra Taneja, in just a bit. And Sanjay Jha, I'm coming to you next. Just bear with me. Ghanshyam Tiwari, the Congress party has taken a high moral ground on the women's reservation bill. The ball is now in the government's court. They may want to deny it. They may want to continue ridiculing Rahul Gandhi, but he's taken a moral high ground on this. Will our politicians live and go beyond sloganeering on this? The opposition to this bill, and I want to remind everyone, is not just from the BJP, and it's not up to just the BJP to do this. The opposition to this initially happened from parties like yourselves. The Samajwadi, Lalu Yadav, they were all opposed to this. The bill lapsed. Indian politicians, and there's only one question I'm asking, from your party's point of view, are you willing to give women 33% reservation in parliament, or will this continue to be the stinky men club that it is?
Unequivocal, yes. We would, if the government brings this bill, we are ready to discuss this bill and we are ready to support this bill. It is for the government to choose whether they are going to bring this bill or not. And right now, when the insecurities around women in India are heightened, the perceptions of it globally are heightened and are affecting the image of India as a country. It is important that this bill is brought up. But is it on the legislative agenda? Have you seen the Prime Minister outline what is his agenda for the monsoon session? He is taking jibes times, which I call stone pelting at the opposition on broad propaganda at what was reported in one newspaper, and calling the entire BJP is right now mesmerized by propaganda and not dictating or not telling the country what is the legislative agenda. You look at how BJP has treated Parliament. Last year, the Parliament met for less than 50 days, less than the number of Sundays in a year, and it was by choice because there's Gujarat election, BJP postponed the winter session. So, if you look at the last 18 years you speak about, whether BJP is in opposition or is in power, they don't look at Parliament as a point to debate. They look at Parliament as an instrument of their politics, and that is what is playing out.
Fair point indeed. Sanjay, coming to you, I know you wanted to respond to an earlier point of Narendra Taneja, but I am adding a very important question, and this could well define what happens in this session of Parliament. In response to your party president's letter to the Prime Minister on Women Reservation Bill, Union Minister of Law Ravi Shankar Prasad has written to Mr. Gandhi asking why was the bill allowed to lapse during UPA regime, a legitimate question. He also asserts this bill should be passed along with anti-triple talaq and nikah halala bills. Are you game? The bill has been cleared by Lok Sabha and is stuck in Rajya Sabha. People are suspicious that given your history in the Shah Bano case, given your track record of minority appeasement, you are not going to help this pass.
Sandeep, let me keep my answer brief. You know, the reason why Ghanshyam Tiwari's party and my party are always, the opposition believes the Parliament is sacrosanct and an appropriate platform to raise issues of the concerns of the common citizen, is because they are televised live. You know, today's day and age, and you know it better than me, when Narendra Modi's government has bulldozed many mainstream TV channels into submission, and many of them openly broadcast fake news and hold, prime time debates on it, the opposition gets to be seen as they are. We are heard without it being edited, morphed or twisted. And therefore, for us, this is more critical than it is for Narendra Modi's government, which anyway, as we all know, is authoritarian and fascist. Now, the fundamental point regarding the Women's Reservation Bill, I've responded to that in a TV debate some time back. I mean, I haven't heard of anything more politically immature, if not altogether absurd, what I've heard from Ravi Shankar Prasad. Can you imagine you're comparing apples and oranges? The Women's Reservation Bill, by the way, talks about the emancipation and empowerment of women across the country, and now doesn't look at one issue or one religion or one caste or one particular tenet of a problem. Yes, the triple talaq bill has also been welcomed by the Congress party. But you know, let me tell you, all opposition parties, many of them said there were certain clauses in that bill that needed to be looked into because they threatened the independence of the men, the Muslim men, and whether they could come under some degree of institutional coercion on account of police and magisterial independence, where they would not be heard. These are valid points. There were talks about allowances given to women, etc. So I think these are valid issues, and it was only going to a select committee. But let me tell you how politically desperate the BJP has become, that now they are trying to link the Women's Reservation Bill, where Mr. Rahul Gandhi has given an open challenge to Narendra Modi. We are going to back you. Cut out this usual, rhetoric of, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. India has seen the rise in number of rapes in India, and India has seen what the BJP ministers have commented on Kathua and Unnao, and their own engagement in these violent acts. Give me 30 seconds. The truth is the BJP is a politically hypocritical party. No, I want to make one point. Let me tell you, when the Prime Minister of this country, Narendra Modi, uses fake news to try and create a slanderous communal campaign against Mr. Gandhi and the Congress party, then I have to say, God save India. यदि भारत के प्रधान सेवक झूठी और नकली खबर पर अपनी राजनीति करते हैं, तो इससे बड़ा
down a political path. You're taking it down a political path. Let's talk about the legislative agenda, but I do want to respond to a comment that you made at the start of this show on the government bulldozing television channels and all. I have something. You've been on this channel, you've been on this debate, and I'm sure you'd agree with me on saying that no government, no opposition can bulldoze or determine our electoral agenda. The government, they want to. The government doesn't. Yeah. At the end of the day, editors make that call. There may be channels that allow themselves to be bulldozed by the government or by whoever else, but the responsibility lies with the editor. And I can tell you that no government or no one can bulldoze channels that don't want to be bulldozed. I just want to say that on record. But a quick follow-up to you, Ghanshyam Tiwari.
Sandeep, let me clarify my statement for your benefit. No, let me clarify my statement for your benefit.
You are letting your channel being used for propaganda. These are political
Supriya,
speeches.
you are dispassionate and neutral.
Okay, and I take that on board. I take that on board. I take that on board. Okay, Naren Taneja. Okay, I take that on board. Naren Taneja, here's the thing, right? I on this channel have said, in response to the Congress party, that no one can bulldoze the electoral agenda of any channel. So I've set the record straight, Naren Taneja. Let's not shout and make it a slanging match. We are doing a fair, objective discussion like we always do. Ghanshyam Tiwari, Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill 2018 is up for passage as well. For those of you who don't understand, this is a bill that the government aims will ensure that, you've blamed the government enough for letting Malya and Nirav Modi flee. Will you assure us and the citizens of this country that you will play a part in not just nabbing them, but also preventing more economic offenders to take us for granted? Because this bill gives legislative cover that ensures that offenders don't flee the country. So will you support this bill when it's tabled in the parliament? Simple question, Ghanshyam Tiwari.
We will. We as a country, both in parliament and on the street, want to break the back of crony capitalism in India. And crony capitalism that comes with loopholes where people are able to run away with thousands of crores on Indian passport in the backdrop of huge rhetoric is even worse. So we are on it. I have said on this debate as well that the opposition wants a clear-cut debate so that the nation knows where does the nation stand in the mess of propaganda and mesmerization of BJP in the current scheme of things and looking at 2019.
I'm going to go across to Naren Taneja. And Mr. Taneja, we've done so many shows together, and I take a lot of offense when you tell independent journalists like us that our channel is being used for propaganda. It's farthest from the truth, and coming from someone like you who's been well-meaning to someone like us who've been independent, I take offense to that. Anyways, I just think I have a question to ask of you. The Supreme Court has today asked Parliament to make a law to deal with the lynching mess. It's called horrendous acts of mobocracy cannot be a reality in any civil society. Will politicians rise to the occasion? Is your government going to take a lead into making a new law or perhaps making the existing ones more enforceable? Or does it actually suit everyone across the political spectrum, the ruling and the opposition benches, to have multiple of these cases? Because it suits both narratives. Are you going to take the lead in framing a new law is all that I'm asking you.
No, the question is, no, listen. The question is, when you let the spokesperson of one party to talk non-stop and talk nonsense, absolute nonsense, don't have the right to say something? And he's saying the government is actually shutting down television channels, shutting down newspapers. BJP is a fascist party. Does he know the meaning of fascist?
I think you talk rubbish.
Does he know that?
Stop trying to pass judgments on what other people have said.
Okay, I don't want you to. Can I not discuss other channels and their propaganda here because I don't practice it. So I don't think I want to waste my on-air time doing it.
The question is that I have the.
One second, Sanjay Jha, Naren Taneja, I don't want to waste precious on-air time talking about other people and their agendas because I don't follow one.
I want him to know this is not the Republic.
Sanjay Jha, please.
This channel is not the Republic. Let him know that.
I'm not going to take this line on because this is a show.
Sanjay, let him make a point. He didn't interrupt you when he spoke.
I am not going to be bulldozed by either of you to waste on-air time into this.
He gets a chance to speak at the public rally. That's why he shouts in TV channels.
Point, Mr.
Okay,
Taneja.
Answer the question. Please answer my question. Are you going to move
in 2019, my friend? कौन पब्लिक रैली में बोलता है, कौन टीवी स्टूडियो में बोलता है, वो भी देख लेंगे. वो भी देख लेंगे. इंतजार करते हैं
Come and fight with me. In my constituency, you can't run the election of the society where you live. Come and fight with
please
me.
Ask.
I give the name
One
of the
second.
constituency. Come and fight against me.
And Sanjay Jha. Naren Taneja and Sanjay Jha, where are we taking this discussion? We are having a discussion on legislative agenda for this monsoon session. Because you know what? 9 crore rupees are spent every day to run parliament. And both of you are not allowing parliament to run. And then you are taking the moral high ground on other people's agenda. This is not a channel that follows any agenda. I'm asking a direct question. Sanjay Jha, please don't interfere. And Naren Taneja, please answer this. Will you be proactive and move a law against lynching?
Are you asking this question to me?
Mr. Taneja? Yes.
Yeah. No, the Supreme Court, as you know, Supreme Court has asked Parliament. Parliament includes all political parties. This judgment, this judgment came this morning, on a petition filed by a Congress leader who is part of the first family of the Congress party. We know that, everybody knows that. We don't know what is the agenda behind it. Anyway, whatever the judgment, whatever the Supreme Court say, we respect it. Now, Supreme Court has asked Parliament. This has come this morning. We will discuss in the party, we will discuss in the government, we will discuss it with other political parties, because Parliament is not only Bharatiya Janata Party. Parliament is about all political party. But we will of course discuss this first in our party, then in the government, then discuss with all other people and political parties in Parliament, then take a view on this. And whatever Supreme Court has said, we of course take it very, very seriously, and we will do whatever best possible.
Okay, fair enough. Chakshu, another issue that is being now talked about is a single line in item 14 in the legislative agenda of the monsoon session of Parliament, which seems to have many people worried. It says to amend the Right to Information Act 2005 for introduction, consideration and passing. A lot of activists have sort of raised a lot of furor over this. What could this amendment be, and how are we to read this?
Okay. Sandeep, two things. I think, while the legislative agenda mentions the name of the bill, the details about what that amendment is and what it will do are not currently in the public domain. I also have not seen a PIB release which mentions the details of the bill. Assuming for the sake of argument that the government introduces this bill, usually what the parliamentary procedure is that the bill is circulated 2 days in advance to members of parliament, and then they have 2 days to study the bill, and then it comes up for consideration. Then it comes for introduction, and members can vote as to whether the bill will have to be introduced or not introduced. But I wanted to get back to a larger point that possibly was being discussed earlier. One part of it was that the Supreme Court has recommended that a certain law be enacted. I don't think in a democracy it's as simple as that today, that a law should be enacted either quickly or without adequate deliberation. Lawmaking is not a reactive process. I think lawmaking has to be a much more deliberative process, where maybe a draft of the law should first be made, put out in the public domain for people to consider. And the point that is related to it, is what was being mentioned in the show earlier, that if Parliament does not work, then there is not adequate time to hold the government to account. Hold the government to account of the work that it is doing. And one part of that is, and something that I've seen very often happen in Parliament, is that the question hour is disrupted. Now, that is possibly the only hour of Parliament which comes with an expiry date. I mean, it starts at 11. If it doesn't function till 12 o'clock, you can't have question hour for the rest of the day. Everything else, you can sit later, you can sit till 10 o'clock and do that. But if you don't do question hour, there is no way that members of Parliament, both from the Treasury and the opposition, will be able to hold government ministers to account. So I think that is something, that is a very important aspect of parliamentary functioning in addition to legislative business. And finally, members of Parliament also have a duty to legislate on their own. And that is something that happens on Fridays. But very often on Fridays, when Parliament is in session, we notice that the benches in the House are empty. So we need to figure out some institutional mechanisms when Parliament either sits more or is able to devote more time to parliamentary business.
No, I can't deny that. I mean, I go to Parliament every single session, and I think Friday is always supposed to be treated as half day because it's a private members' bill day. Ministers and MPs don't take it seriously at all. Completely with you on this. But Jaggi, I want to ask you a broader question, and the broader question has to be on the role of Speaker both in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. And does a lot of the onus to run sessions really rest there? Does it really rest on the speakers in both houses? I mean, who also look and seem too eager to adjourn the House. Even during the budget session, I remember covering it then. The Lok Sabha was adjourned thrice in 1 minute, 4 times in under 2 minutes, and thrice in 3 minutes. I mean, shouldn't there be some attempt made? Shouldn't some kind of a rule be allowed by speakers? And shouldn't speakers be perhaps a lot more assertive to run the House than to adjourn this? I mean, why should adjournment be the vote of choice instead of running the House? And is that where the responsibility of the Speaker really rests?
Yeah, I think so. I think all houses, both houses need to be run according to well-defined rules, and the speaker should be in control of the house in most parts of the time. I think, of course, it's also true that the speakers tend to be a little more attentive to what the government's interests are, because after all the speaker performs a function because he is elected by a majority, and the majority happens to usually be with the government. So I think that, but I think in the last session, I think the speaker did not do quite right by not allowing the no confidence motion to be taken up. Maybe the government was ready, they were happy to have it filibustered and stalled, because they didn't want the embarrassment of knowing who will vote for it and who will not, though there was no question that they would win the vote. So they did not want the embarrassment at that stage, and the speaker went along with it and allowed the house to be adjourned repeatedly on the basis of a few limited number of members rushing to the well and creating a ruckus. I think this business of rushing to the well ought to be banned, and the speaker ought to clearly say anybody who rushes to the well will be ousted for the day. I mean, and once you start being firm and the house follows certain sets of rules, then I think you will be, and both the speaker and the vice chairman of the, the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, who happens to be the vice president, need to be very firm on basic rules like these. You cannot have endless lack of control, and sometimes catering to opposition whims, sometimes to government whims and all that. Rules have to be framed, and these speakers should feel bound by it, and there has to be strong action against people who disrupt. That has to be the norm, and I hope that in future this is what the speaker will do.
Narendra Taneja, do you agree with that? That the responsibility of running the house also rests on the speaker. And speakers, and luckily in both houses, luckily the ex-officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha right now, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, who's got huge political experience, and Sumitra Mahajan, are people who can make houses run. And still we see the option of adjournment being used every now and then. Why should the house not run?
You see, speaker is not a member of any political party, so I can't speak on behalf of the speaker. And vice president is vice president. He's not a member of any political party. Again, I can't speak on his behalf. The question is that, you see, all political parties, if the intention is that they are interested in debate, they are interested in finding solution and conveying the wishes of the people, concerns of the people, because that's what the parliament is meant for. Then, of course, the business can take place. But the intention is only to have some narrative with their manufacturer as part of their propaganda, and not let the ruling parties to even talk. Don't let them talk. Don't let them talk in TV studios, in news conferences, other conferences, or for that matter Parliament House. Now if that is the whole idea, to basically create noise, we will go and converse with the people. We will have conversation with the people. Look at these people. They are not letting us do anything. Look at, for instance, their performance in TV studio. Look at the performance on the floor of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and all that. No problem. We'll go and communicate with the people and tell them the truth. And then let the people decide. In democracy, I'm not saying you buy everything that I'm saying, but we will have conversation with the people, explain the whole thing, and then let the people decide. That's how the democracy functions, and that's what we are a democratic party. We believe in this. We believe that if they don't let us do any duty, again monsoon, in monsoon session, for instance, they don't allow the productivity. You talked about productivity in your introductory remark. Productivity on an average of both houses down to 25% thanks to these parties.
Now
the question is, are they serious about parliament or they're not? Are they serious about democracy or not? That is the question.
I'm coming to you, Sanjay.
Democracy, they should come and raise issues and have a debate.
Okay, fair enough. You made your point, Narendra Taneja. Ghanshyam Tiwari wants to make a quick rebuttal, and then I'm coming to you, Sanjay Jha. Ghanshyam, you go first. Quickly, please.
Well, the cat is out of the bag, where BJP spokesperson says that if the house doesn't function, we'll go to the people. They are responsible for making the house function. That is the tradition of the house, and in the last session they were responsible to ensure that their informal ally AIDMK did not allow the house to function. So for them to say on the eve of parliament session that if the house doesn't function, we will go to the people is a jumla in itself, and it is abdicating responsibility.
Okay, you made your point. Sanjay, I'm coming to you, and I have a sort of slightly broader question. This is also going to be a test for opposition unity. A new Rajya Sabha deputy chairman has to be elected. You have held that post for 4 decades, but TMC wants to put up a candidate. Will you support? Will the opposition come together to elect a new deputy chairman of the Rajya Sabha?
Well, before I answer your question, Sandeep, a Freudian slip by the BJP spokesperson, because when you asked him a question on the serious issue of lynching and the Supreme Court's mandate today to create a law by Parliament, his first response was very political. He said the petitioner is close to somebody in the Congress party. It clearly tells you the mindset of the current ruling dispensation. This, when Jain Sena garlands people who are convicted of lynching. And let me tell you, this is a serious issue. This is concerning people of India, because now I have people in Mumbai who tell me that if we drive on a highway and God forbid we hit a cattle or a man on the road, we'll be lynched. And soon it will become, happening outside your door and outside your TV studio. Clearly, Mr. Modi's party doesn't care a damn. To answer your question on the, the deputy chairman's position, I think all opposition parties are being very pragmatic about the fact that we are up against a formidable, monstrous party in the BJP, which will use every trick in the book, in their playbook rather, using money and muscle power to subvert democracy. So we are in conversation and we'll see a definite political consensus emerge. But I'm very disturbed by the kind of response I've heard from the BJP spokesperson on lynching. I don't think this is going to be a sporadic phenomenon happening in different parts of India that the urban consumers like you and me read in the papers. It can soon happen in our cities. And it's a shame that the BJP, instead of welcoming the Supreme Court verdict, which by itself, Sandeep, is a manifestation of the failure of the executive. The fact that
Sanjay Jha, you were asked a question and you've answered that. No, Sanjay Jha, you've asked, you're now repeating some of what you've said earlier, and so I will step in. No, Sanjay Jha, you've said what you had to earlier. You were asked a direct question, you answered that. You're now repeating some of what you've said earlier, and I will not let you do that. But I'm going to go across to Jaggi. And Jaggi, Mr. Jaitley, who's of course now recuperating from a successful kidney transplant, is the leader of the House in the Rajya Sabha. Will his absence hurt the Treasury benches in the upper house, especially given the volatile atmosphere that this session is happening in? He plays the leader of the House in the Rajya Sabha, and he's also someone who can seemingly be an accomplished salesman for a lot of government's policies. He can douse the fire, is what a lot of people say. Are they going to sorely miss him, and who can really be putting in those positions?
Yeah, I think so. I think Mr. Jaitley is the one person on the BJP side who can walk across the aisle and talk to people in the opposition, and he can talk to them behind the scenes or in parliament, and I think he does not raise the kind of hackles that many other ministers do. In fact, none of the others have the kind of linkages with key opposition leaders that Mr. Jaitley has, and I think the fact that he is recuperating and that there's somebody else in the finance ministry, of course that's a different matter, but I think the BJP badly needs somebody who can walk across the aisle and talk to anybody in the Rajya Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha is going to be crucial for any legislative business in this current session. Lok Sabha, of course, one assumes that it can manage because of the BJP's majority, but in the Rajya Sabha you need to be able to carry a lot more clout with the opposition and your allies, and the crucial deputy chairman election is going to be something that the BJP will have to negotiate. I think if it is done through consensus, that will be the ideal thing. Even if there is an election, Jaitley will be seriously missed in the coming sessions of both houses of parliament, since his wisdom and connections would have helped a lot.
We couldn't agree more with you that it's not just North Bloc, but even the Parliament that's going to miss Arun Jaitley. But running out of time, very quickly, Ghanshyam Tiwari, and then I'm going to get closing comments. Yesterday a 12-party meeting was held and has been agreed upon to bring a vote of no confidence against the government. This was made previously too. What's the point? You don't have the numbers. Why are you doing this? Is this another delaying tactic?
Well, it is the TDP, an ex-ally which got the same mandate as BJP to run the country, that is bringing the no confidence motion on the agenda of promises that Prime Minister made and did not fulfill. And opposition sees this as a common theme across the country with respect to jobs, with respect to farmers, women's safety, you name it. As a result, opposition is looking at this as an opportunity to speak what the people of India are speaking on the street and question the government on important agenda, on their agenda of misrule, and why did they not deliver to their promises. So for us, this debate is extremely important because this debate summarizes the mood of the nation.
All right, so this debate will summarize the mood of the nation, but Naren Taneja will have to ask you, they don't have the numbers, they can't topple your government, and still during the budget session, Every effort was made by the ruling benches to not let that motion be tabled. What is the paranoia? It's not as if you're going to lose out of office. Let them make a failed attempt. They will perhaps be subjecting themselves to ridicule. Why not?
No, it's not paranoia. No, it's not paranoia. You can see in television debates also, they're not serious. They are wasting your viewers' time. They want to waste the people's time. They waste people's money also when Parliament meets. So all we want is people to see it. And people are very smart. People of India are very smart. They can see people are talking of lynching, what they did to thousands of Sikhs, thousands of them in Delhi in 1984. You can't ignore it. You say it happened 30 years ago. No. This is what they did. Congress party did.
Huh?
You know, now the question here is that people can see through it. People can see through all this. People can see through all this. And the result is...
Yeah, please complete your point very quickly, Narendra Taneja.
This man is not letting me talk. So this is what Congress does. In television studio, they don't let us talk. In Parliament, they don't let us talk. That's Congress party for you. Dictatorial, authoritarian, family-owned Congress party. Not letting me talk in TV studio.
Please complete your point. 10 seconds. Narendra Taneja, complete your point.
That's Congress for you viewers. And for the people.
Okay, complete your point, Narendra Taneja. Oh, you made your point. Excellent.
Chakshu Roy, you're going to... The point I was trying to make is that you see, the point... point I'm trying to make is very simple. You see, all these, that was not the whole thing. There are so many bills, very, very important. Some of them really crucial for us, for the country, for the people of this country. You see, you can settle your score, you can do whatever, you know, next year when the elections come or even otherwise. Here, Parliament is meant. Parliament is a temple of democracy. Show some respect for the temple of democracy.
Some respect for the temple of democracy,
other temples. We know that.
I am running out of time. Chakshu Roy, I am running out of time. Narendra Taneja, I have to interrupt you. Chakshu Roy, you're going to get the last word on this debate. Chakshu Roy, you're going to get the last word on this debate. Help us, just before we close this debate, let's put this in perspective. For the benefit of our viewers, why don't you highlight the cost? What is the cost of wastage? What is the cost of us not running Parliament in schedule? What is the cost of another washout?
You know, one, I hope bipartisanship prevails and, you know, we are able to see a smooth session. And the reason I say that is because, you know, the year just before a general election has seen some key legislation get passed. In 2008, we had the IT amendment bill get passed. The National Investigative Agency bill was passed in 2008. In 2013, we saw the land acquisition, we saw the companies bill, we saw the food security bill passed. So I have huge expectations from the session. I hope a lot of key legislative business get passed. On the question of what is the cost to the country when it comes to passing, when it comes to Parliament getting adjourned repeatedly or not functioning, I think cost is far greater than money that is calculated. The cost, the opportunity cost to the nation of the time and of the key legislative measures that the country could have needed. So you can't equate that to just a simple money number. I think the cost is way greater than any number that we can put.
Indeed. So let's not put a number to this, but this is a huge opportunity cost lost if Parliament doesn't function again. I hate to say maybe your hopes will be belied and our politicians will not be able to live up to this. But on that note, thanks very much each one of you for joining us. Narendra Taneja, Sanjay Jha, Ghanshyam Tiwari, Chakshu Roy, and of course R. Jagannathan for being with us as we discuss the stormy monsoon session ahead. Parliament of India is supreme not just because of the MPs or the ministers, but because it represents 120 crore of us. A parliament in limbo is not an option. It isn't what we actually voted our MPs for. It isn't what an economy can afford, or even not what India deserves.
Absolutely. Parliament must make laws on pressing crucial issues, both economic and social. At a time when India is going through challenging times, Parliament is the last bastion and, may I say, the only bastion of hope. Hopefully, our politicians will stand up to the challenge when it matters. Thanks for being with us on this edition of the India Development Debate. Up next is Top 10 at 10.